Jonathan Skogmo has been working with user-generated content since before the term user-generated content even existed. Back in the 2000s, he moved to Hollywood and worked for what were called clip shows, where viewers would physically mail in funny home videos to have them compete for cash prizes. As it turned out, Jonathan's entry into the industry coincided almost perfectly with the launch of YouTube. He was eventually able to leverage his skills to find viral clips on YouTube and license them to the media companies and brands that wanted to use them. His company, Jukin Media, eventually paid out over $50 million in royalties, and in 2021 was acquired by the company that owns Reader's Digest. Now, Jonathan is building a new company focused on travel. And rather than growing it from scratch, he's acquired several existing media brands. In a recent interview, he walked me through his acquisition strategy and explained why physical travel guidebooks still have currency in an era where influencers seem to have captured the market. Hello, I'm Simon Owens, and this is The Business of Content, the show about how publishers create, distribute, and monetize their digital content. If you want to listen to an audio version of this show, subscribe to The Business of Content wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're a longtime fan of this show, you're probably aware that it's not monetized with ads. I'm entirely reliant on paid subscriptions to my Substack newsletter to fund this show. If you want me to keep delivering you interviews with the world's most successful media entrepreneurs, then subscribe for just $100 a year. Go to simonowens.substack.com. That's simonowens.substack.com. Or just Google the words Simon Owens and newsletter. Okay, let's jump into the interview. Hey, Jonathan, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
So you're on here because you're, this incredibly successful media entrepreneur. You've sold a previous company and now you're working on a new one. How did you get started in media? Like I was looking at your LinkedIn, it looked like you kind of came up through like traditional Hollywood and TV and stuff like that.
Yeah, certainly, came up the traditional route, at least when I first started, and then kind of pivoted in a whole different direction. So I actually went to film school in Chicago, moved out to LA 20 years ago. I was lucky enough to work on some pretty major films. Actually, my first time on a film set was Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins.
Oh,
And
wow.
it's pretty low on the totem pole, but it was a very cool experience. But after working on a few films, working for a casting director, knew I had to be out in LA, obviously the media capital of the world. And so it really was like a crazy kind of Hollywood story where I moved out, didn't really know anybody, was almost at one point living on my car, doing a lot of odd jobs. Wanted to be in films, but more importantly, I wanted to put my stake in the ground at somewhere in the entertainment industry. But I landed, funny enough, working on clip shows. And I don't know if you're familiar with clip shows, but this is the early 2000s. And my job was to working on a clip show was to find home videos that people would send in from around the world or around America. And my job was actually to go to the P.O. box every day and pick up VHS tapes and DVDs.
So
And
this
I
is like the classic Bob Saget, funniest home videos type of stuff, but maybe a slightly more modern version of it, right?
Well, modern subjective.
Yeah.
It was definitely a derivative version, but it was a very similar show that was on a small cable network. It's actually on CMT. But it was the same kind of model, same kind of set up. And my job was to look at these really bad videos and tapes that people would send in. And if they were any good, what I was working in is doing research and clearance, and I had to clear the rights to these videos. And so I'd call somebody up, they put their phone number on the envelope that you could barely read,
Hmm.
and I had to send them paperwork, and I asked them more questions, sent them more paperwork, and they sent them more footage, and it took a very long time to clear a tape, but it was a great learning experience because it was like the early analog days. But how I kind of took advantage of that moment is really where it kind of transformed my career, and happy to dive into that.
Yeah, so you end up, founding this company called Jukin Media, and if you look at like the early days of YouTube, that's all it was were these like random. We didn't have like creators in the sense that we have today, where people were building up millions of followers. Like a lot of the early viral videos on YouTube were just like funny, weird clips that went viral and were shared, in email and like embedded in blogs and stuff like that, which is kind of the next version of what you were already doing where people were like physically sending in their videos.
Yeah, I mean, I not that many people can say they have a whole career around user-generated content, and
Hmm.
and if somebody has to, be the king of that throne, it's certainly me. Yeah, I've been around UGC and really seen it evolve. And so when I was working on this clip show, I really took advantage of online video, and I was kind of like the right person at the right time, where I told my producers, we should be going online and to help find content, which is obviously so obvious today, but
Yeah.
certainly back then, the technology wasn't there for the broadbanding and streaming this content. A lot of these websites were kind of like softcore porn, kind of mixed with like jackass wannabes of guys lighting their hair on fire and jumping into lakes and stuff like that. And so it wasn't necessarily a safe environment, but I was, kind of an early adopter to this one platform where I actually thought people were uploading content that they owned, and it was family friendly content. And so I was really one of the first people to be an early adopter of this platform, reach out to people directly, clear their video, and then put that on television. And that website, that platform just happened to be called YouTube. The producers told me, don't go on there, but I was pretty reluctant. And so during kind of the mid 2000s, online video obviously got more popular. YouTube got more popular. These clip shows became extremely popular. And I became the guy in Hollywood who knew how to kind of produce these clip shows. So I moved up in the ranks pretty quickly because I was finding more content than my producers that were, producing content for the last 20 years and, twice my age. And so I moved up in the ranks in kind of the clip show Hollywood community, jumping around from network to network, show to show, producing and staffing up content that I was leveraging online and putting that on TV. And so I was working for MTV, True TV, CMT, and then I was at Discovery in about 2009, about a year after the writer's strike, where cable network and non-scripted shows were really at its peak. I thought it was an interesting opportunity to start buying the rights to user-generated content, or like you said earlier, viral videos. I understood the market better than anyone of how to monetize that content because I knew the market for it because I was coming up with the budgets. And so I thought it was an interesting idea to create a media company that was powered by UGC. And so I quit my job for Discovery and bought my first video for my West Hollywood apartment. And 12 years later, Jukin Media became a 300 person company.
Yeah. And so was it that you were buying the rights and then reselling them, or you were just becoming, were you like the facilitator who were like working on behalf of the creators and licensing it and then doing a revenue share?
So the lifeblood of any media company, as you probably know, is its IP.
Hmm.
And so I looked at it the exact same way. So for me to able to maximize the value of this content, I needed to get the exclusive rights. That being said, we would sometimes give a one-time payment, especially in those early days. Later on, we did a rev share. And by the time, I sold Jukin Media, we paid over $50 million in royalties. We still own the rights on behalf of the original video owner, but they participated in all the kind of the upside of that. And so
Yeah.
we
And that involved like building like a platform. Like how were you kind of like feeding videos? Like were you pitching video like I've got a hot new viral video for pitch that's like in sending an email out to all the producers for all the morning shows, or like what was the kind of pipeline of how people would discover those videos on your platform that could actually like purchase or license the rights to use it on TV?
Yeah, so those, it was a 12-year journey. In those early days was very a lot of hand-to-hand combat, and I bootstrapped the business, didn't raise money for another 3 or 4 years into it, which we never touched. But it was a
Hmm.
lot of that kind of pounding pavement, sending emails. I mean, I knew the licensing business and the clip show world really well. So all the producers and all the clearance people on all these cable television clip shows were all my friends, and I knew the market. So I was just sending them emails. As the company advanced, we built a handful of technology and proprietary systems, not only to find and discover that content, but also then build a marketplace. And we really were the Getty images for viral videos and user-generated content, where the market also matured and grew, where at first I was just licensing clip shows, then I was licensing to morning shows, news shows, talk shows, Ellen, Good Morning America, Jimmy Kimmel. As user-generated content and digital video became more accepted, obviously, again, today you see it everywhere, but I really saw kind of the rise of that. And as that started rising, became more mainstream, I really took advantage of the market. We started licensing to, I think when we first started, I couldn't get any brand or creative agency to talk to us. By the time we sold the company, we were doing 500 digital campaigns a year, individual campaigns. Our ads, our videos were on Super Bowl commercials. So the market really did change, and we took advantage of that. So we built a marketplace where you could download and license the content. We built feeds. We were RSS feeds in every publisher, all the big publishers back then, the Yahoos, the HuffPost, the AOLs of the world, getting our videos on the front pages. So we had a lot of different kind of revenue streams to monetize that video and maximize that monetization for the video creator.
And when did you sell it?
Sold it in 21.
2021, and you sold it to like a media holding company or something like that, right?
Yeah, it was a parent company of Reader's Digest, and they have a
Yeah.
handful of other owned and operated properties.
And did you work for them at all, or did you part ways at that point?
I stayed around for a year. They
Hmm.
asked me, and my co-CEO, to stay around for a year, and it was a great year, and it was great kind of, getting the company integrated, and now it's fully integrated under the Reader's Digest umbrella, which is called Trusted Media Brands, now called TMB.
Yeah. So you last year you launched this brand, or you launched the site Lost In, but it's a previously existing brand that you acquired. Like it was like a guidebook brand or something like that.
Yeah, so I mentioned when Jukin Media was like his bootstrap and scrappy business for my West Hollywood apartment, like as scrappy as one can be.
Yeah.
I necessarily didn't want to do that the second time around after experiencing that. And so I spent a lot of time kind of thinking, where do I want to put my focus? I mean, at the end of the day, I love building companies. I love media. I love content. And how do I kind of leverage my skill in digital media and kind of being, you know, a pioneer in the UGC world? How do I take that to the 2.0 to the next level? And so instead of really kind of bootstrapping, even though it kind of feels that way, again, we raised a little bit of capital, and I wanted to look at different sectors where I felt like they were ran by legacy publishers or weren't running kind of the industry, but are not keeping up with the times. And I can get into why I went into travel, but I did come across this really great brand called Lost In that has done these traditional city guidebooks. And so essentially what we did is we did a roll up of a handful of mini, I would say, digital media assets around travel.
Yeah. So I'm drawing a blank. What's the big guidebook company that was the super well-known one?
You have Fromers, you have Lonely Planet.
Yeah, Lonely
Uh,
Planet. Yeah, like I was
yeah.
just covering my newsletter recently, like kind of the fall of Lonely Planet is because it was so focused on kind of the guidebook, and then it was kind of just all these influencers and travel creators were running laps around it. It really did not kind of adapt to the time and really try to leverage its brand to kind of move into that new space. I'm guessing, when you bought Lost In, it was probably suffering from that kind of same kind of spiral. Would that be accurate?
Well, I would say Lost In, which I love about the brand, and they've been producing guidebooks for the last 10 years. I kind of love
Hmm.
the aesthetic. I mean, here's
Hmm.
one sitting in front of me. I love the aesthetic. It's closed, so I can't flip through it.
Hmm.
But it has a really particular tone and point of view. It goes a little bit deeper than I think just what's on the surface level, and they've covered 28 different cities. And what I love about it is they do go that layer deep, and it's talking about the gastronomy, the art scene, the music scene. Lost in Paris is not talking about the Louvre or the Eiffel Tower. We assume you've been there and done that, and there's plenty of information about that. This goes a lot layer deep to learn about this bakery that's off the beaten path that's been there for 300 years. Or here, this is the up and coming Parisian rapper, and you can only see him at this one venue. And that's what I really love about it. It really has a very particular voice, and it's for a younger generation. Where I think the Lonely Planets and some of these other guys have got really dated, and they haven't kept up with the times. And so it's not necessarily I want to be in kind of the legacy publishing business, but I really kind of love the IP and what it stood for. I love the name Lost In, and we do Lost in so many different cities. Um, and I compare that with a handful of other digital media assets.
Yeah, so like you're keeping the guidebooks. I think I was looking on the website, so you're still selling those. But like the idea is like let's build a digital media company around this brand. So it's like you could still buy those guidebooks, you could hold them in your hands like this tangible product, but we're not going to like travel isn't static. There's like there's infinite amounts of content that you can create around that. Is that kind of like the core thesis of the
Yeah,
company?
exactly. When I was kind of thinking about the vertical and why go into travel, I was really obsessed with trying to understand why travel is through the roof as far as spending. More people are doing it than ever before. They could consider it a lifestyle, their travels. And why are the legacy media publishers, the Lonely Planets, the Condes, the Travel and Leisures, why are they not capturing this audience? And so I was really obsessed in trying to figure that out because it's not like all media is going bad, but travel media is not doing great either. Yet on the spending consumer side, heading in the opposite direction. So I was really obsessed with trying to figure that out. And I think it came down to two things. After hiring an investment banker, doing about a year and a half of research, talking to everyone I knew in the space, I think they don't have a really good sense of community. And I think that's first and foremost what you need to do in this day and age in the world that we're living in this multi-platform space that we play in. And it's not video first. And what I have is kind of that video first, social first kind of mentality. And so if I can bring those two things, I think we can create a really great media company, next gen media company that really pairs travel, culture, and lifestyle and put them all together.
Yeah, it just seems like TikTok and YouTube are just become such juggernauts in the kind of travel space with like, travel vloggers and reviewers and stuff like that. So you kind of you bought the Lost and brand and maybe a few of these other digital media sites and you kind of relaunched in like what mid 2024 or when was the
It
when
was
did you
about this time last year, so
yeah.
about June of 24. So we also acquired BuzzFeed and
Yeah.
their travel vertical, Bring Me, acquired
Yeah, I actually
acquired.
had they were one of my earliest podcast guests was
Oh, really?
years ago was the guy whoever was running that shortly after it launched. So yeah.
I mean, I think they did a great job. I think obviously BuzzFeed has a lot of irons in the fire, and they had to take some out to focus on other parts of their business. And so I really like the audience and the audience alignment. We're going after millennials. We're going after working professionals that have discretionary income that prioritize lifestyle and travel, or prioritizes travel as part of their lifestyle. And what we're also calling this segmentation, which I think largely gets ignored from a marketing standpoint, is the premium economy traveler. This is the folk that likes to scale up and scale down. They spend a little bit extra money for their legroom or comfort. They're not first class, they're not private, but they may scale up to business, go into premium economy. They're more of the seasoned traveler, but that's young and is craving new experiences. And I thought that was, missing in the marketplace. You also mentioned something about influencers, and I do think influencers have really changed the game. But at the same time, a lot of these influencers and YouTubers that focus on travel, they get burnt out 5 times faster than any other kind of creator that's out there because they're always on the road traveling and it's a hard life to sustain. And so
Hmm.
we work with a handful of influencers ourselves, but a really kind of small subsect that we invest in, we incubate, we cross promote guys and girls that meet our kind of brand ethos and have the lens that we're looking for and that audience alignment. But the travel world, for being massive, and a lot of people, obviously spending money on travel, from a media side, it's super fragmented.
So for the influencers, like what kind of deals are you making with them? Like is it like they're making content on their own channels and you're like monetize helping them monetize, or is it like they're coming over and they're creating content for your channels?
Well, I think one thing we don't want to do is be in the influencer management business. And so I think we play in the creator economy is that we're supporting them through licensing some of their content. We are creating original content with them. We are bringing them brand deals. We're shooting a campaign right now in one part of the world I can't name where we flew a handful of them out there and we're creating some original content on behalf of a DMO. And so it's a little bit of a combination of everything from, the licensing to creating original content to investing in their content. And at the end of the day, we want these guys because we only have a small subset to kind of almost be brand ambassadors for us.
Hmm. So how are you staffed now in terms of like like how big is the company and like what's kind of the kind of structure of it?
Yeah, we're pretty lean and mean right now. I would say about a dozen between full-time and fractional folks. So we have some sales folks, we have some people on the content production side, some folks on the kind of marketing and audience development and community management. Um, everyone's a Swiss Army knife, as I like to say. We're wearing many hats, including myself.
So like on a weekly basis, what are the different kinds of content you're creating?
Yeah, so we're creating a lot of content for social
Hmm.
right now. And so that's really a primary focus for us, is really kind of building that audience and community. So that everything that we do, it is community focused and obsessed. And so we really want to focus on engagement and building that community. We now have 10, 11 million fans in kind of our social network between the brands that we acquired and under the Lost and banner. Um, we are spending a lot of time understanding what our audience wants, what they like. We're sending out surveys on a daily basis, and we're collecting all that first party data. We're building out our newsletter, which is now close to 50,000 folks subscribing into that newsletter. And so we're getting data, a lot of data for first party data from that. We're also working on building some more books. And so the problem sometimes with the physical books, and I love them, and I love that they sit on people's coffee table and people think this is a work of art. But sometimes we have to update them a little bit more, and so they're a little static in that sense, and not so dynamic. And so we updated three books this year: our Tokyo guidebook, our Amsterdam guidebook, and then our Stockholm guidebook. And one thing we did last year, we created kind of a new series under the Lost and Banner, which is Neighborhoods. And we did the Venice Beach guidebook. We're located in Venice Beach. We thought it was a great place to do our testing ground, published the book under our own editorial. So once we bought the company, this is the first book under our leadership. And it was a huge success. And I'll tell you for the first time, we haven't told anyone else this. We're going to be launching a new book in one of the boroughs in New York coming this summer.
So for the social platforms, like which ones are you most focused on?
I would say Instagram is probably our biggest focus right now. I think that's where we're getting the most alignment. I think that's the best place where you can really kind of develop the brand voice, particularly for this type of content. I think, unfortunately, also the problem with Instagram, I like to say, there's too much, I like to say, is travel porn out there. Too many beautiful places, too many beautiful, the same places. And again, we really like to put our kind of own spin, our own lens, not where everyone else is shooting those shots. We like to say, hey, that's beautiful over here, but why don't you check out this place over here? So it's been a really great place for building that engagement and community.
And like, there are two kinds of different digital media companies, those who are like focused on just driving traffic back to their owned and operated, website versus like there are a few like they're just like Jubilee Media and stuff like that. They're just fully distributed. Like they don't really care if you go to their website. Like they just want you to like view their content on whatever platform you're on, and then they're trying to monetize those platforms directly. How do you kind of approach the platform versus website debate?
It's a great question, and I think because I've never really been, on owned and operated websites. I'm not that type of publisher. I'm more of a uh, platform agnostic at the end of the day, and really social first. That's always kind of been my skill set. And so, as you know, websites are not doing what they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, or 20 years ago. And so for us, it's why even spend any time thinking about that? Why spend time thinking about affiliate? I think for us, it's not like let's not run over there and grab as many nickels as we can. We want to pick up dollars in the future, and so we don't want to step over dollars to pick up nickels to make a buck. And so there's a lot of things that we could do, especially on the affiliate side, working with brands and having partnerships with products and services that we don't believe in. We're very selective right now with the partners that we do partner with. For us, it's not just let's grab as much money as we can before that, let's drain the well before the water runs out. That's definitely not our strategy. Our strategy is for the long term and focusing on that community and closing on that engagement. I don't think we'll ever have like an open web publishing business. I think that's unfortunately that those days are gone. And so all of our content that we publish, you can only buy in the books. think at some point we might put that behind a wall garden and monetize that, but we'll never open up the web. I think it will cheapen the brand. I think it will cheapen our editorial, our really strong editorial lens.
Do you publish like articles to like a website or anything like that?
No.
It's all video and image
Hmm.
content
Yeah.
other
Hmm.
than the books.
Yeah. So the books are the only editorial, yeah, that
Interesting.
we publish.
And so like let's talk about the how you
And the
monetize it
and the newsletter.
and the
But
newsletter.
it's very
Okay.
light news, yeah. Light articles.
So let's talk about monetization. So obviously you sell the guidebooks, so you make, money when people purchase that. You kind of reference some affiliate and like brand campaigns. Like how do you approach those different things?
Well, I think, when you could do a 360 is really kind of like what we're hoping for when it comes to the publishing and the sponsorship or partnership side. And so we're really focusing on working with some of these tourism boards and DMOs around the world. They're really looking to bring in, bring in folks to their cities. And so working closely with them in a perfect world, when we launch a new book, we're working in tandem that these guys are going to help subsidize those costs and they also help bring partners. And so we're in a handful of conversations and we're thinking about our editorial calendar. A lot of that's going to be dependent on the tourism board. And again, it won't be any tourism board. It's got to be a place that kind of falls within our wheelhouse. And so if we can help work with them to not only, put their city or town or state on the map, that's our goal. And what we do for that is not only just the book publishing side, but we do events around that. We do activations. We create a lot of awareness, a lot of top of the funnel awareness, and obviously some social video as well.
So like it's like they want you to create like a video about how great it is to visit whatever Dubai or something like that. And so that's just like a video you send somebody to shoot video there, and then that's just something that runs on like your Instagram account.
Yeah, yeah. In a perfect world, we'll do a book, we'll do some events around that, we'll do some video content, and obviously some newsletter editorial. So that's kind of like the 360 piece, how we're working with some of the tourism boards. They also recommend partners,
Mhm.
particularly if you're in a certain part of the world. There's only certain airlines and flights that go there. But we're not necessarily focusing on some of the endemic brands that are in travel, and it's a huge freaking category. The cruise ships, the airlines, the big hotel groups, the rental cars. Well, we're actually really finding a lot of success is kind of younger CPG D2C companies, a lot of folks that you've probably had on your podcast, folks that I've listened to, guys who have a really kind of younger, kind of digital first e-commerce kind of mindset, folks that are building brands, almost content brands, but they're a CPG product. And so partnering with those guys, trying to find some of that brand alignment is really interesting. So you're not, when you think of us, we say we're travel media, but again, we're kind of lifestyle and we're travel culture meet and interconnect. And so, like, we partnered with a hot fragrance brand. They're a CPG fragrance brand. They did a huge activation at Coachella. And then we did a big activation here in Venice off Abbot Kinney, and we were creating content together. And so we're finding a lot of folks like that, folks in the music scene and music festivals. We're working with a handful of music festivals right now. So it's not like your traditional endemic brands. I feel we'll get there at some point, but we're getting a lot of success partnering with some of these kind of hot and up and coming CPG brands that have their own following. And we kind of all rise together.
So like for the guidebooks, can like someone like fully subsidize through a sponsorship a guidebook? Like if you don't have one for Singapore, can the Singapore Travel Authority or whatever, like say we want to pay you to make a guidebook for Singapore, or is that how it
Absolutely.
works?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how, I mean, that's how our proposals are. Yeah. We're
Yeah.
talking to a handful of cities around the world.
And then for the books, like where are you selling them? Like is it just still bookstores or like do you have like a direct to consumer or is it more of a direct to consumer like business now?
So right now it's mostly D2C and we're in a handful of brick and mortar from kind of like the pounding pavement and making phone calls and
Hmm.
walking up to, boutique bookstores from the founding team. But traditionally, so we bought the company, they've been publishing for 10 years and they had a distributor. They're out of Berlin. So we bought the company out of Berlin. They had a distributor and they were in a handful of big retailers, folks like Urban Outfitters, Anthropology, a handful of European bookstores. Unfortunately, they were a victim of COVID, particularly when, people weren't traveling those first 12 months. And so they kind of stopped production. They stopped producing more books. They stopped focusing on sales. They ran out of inventory. So one of our first steps was once we acquired Lawson, was to update the books and get more inventory.
Is the hope that like it's like such a strong brand that like I don't know if you have a book for Istanbul, but if I'm going to Istanbul, I'm like I gotta like I'm a huge fan of Lost In. I'm gonna get the Istanbul Lost In book or whatever.
Yeah, so we do have a book of Istanbul, actually. And I'm happy to send it to you. I've actually might go this summer. I've never been. But yeah, I think that the ideal is it's not necessarily for you to take it around though. I think the size, if you see the size of the book, it
Hmm.
is meant you could do that. At the same time, people collect these books almost like a trophy,
Hmm.
after only even sometimes after they've been to the place
Hmm.
because it's like a trophy or it's like a moment in time. And that's what I tell people about sometimes how we don't have to update the books, every year because it's almost like a time capsule in some sense of the world. Like places that we did in Venice Beach, some of them are one or two places that we featured already closed. And it's been 6 months, but they were memorable places. And if you've been there during that time, it almost becomes, memorabilia for you. And so it's really cool how people are using these books. They could take them for the trip. At the same time, they're buying them after the trip as well.
So for the affiliate stuff, like you're creating content on platforms that don't like links. Like like Instagram doesn't like links to be on there. How are you driving attribution or showing attribution for driving sales and stuff like that, given that you're not like publishing a lot of article content and stuff like that?
So I think that we use that to our advantage that we're not always sending people off somewhere else. So when we do a partner, it's very meaningful and people know it's now under kind of again the lost in lens that we know we're just not going to partner with anybody. And so I think building up that credibility and authority again, it already has such great, they already has that from the books part, and now doing that on social has been just a huge focus for us. So I think definitely use that to our advantage. When we know we do put something to go check out, it's very rare that we do it, and our audience really responds to that. And so we're able to kind of track the click-throughs. And so we're not always like most publishers do, send it back to their own and operator website. We're not doing that on a daily basis. We want to keep people within the platform and build the community within that platform.
But like if affiliate sales are based on them being able to specifically track it to you, like is it through the link in bio or are you telling your viewers to use like a discount code with your name in it or like how are you getting that
We
attribution?
haven't done any affiliate sales.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. So we're
Mhm.
avoiding that right now. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
hmm
And
And I
so
think
like
our value prop is really on brand awareness and top of funnel.
mhm. So when you're looking ahead like 3 years from now, what do you hope to be doing that you're not doing currently?
I I want to continue, it's a great question, continue building the community that we have now. And we want to be the trusted resource for the millennial traveler, this premium
Yeah.
economy traveler. So I think that's first and foremost. But ideally is we will move them into an area where we can monetize them directly. That's more than just books. And so I don't know exactly what that is quite yet, but we are testing, we are thinking about that on a daily basis. So really the plan is to build that trust, build that authority, and then move that on an audience, funnel them into an area we can monetize them better and also get more of that first party data.
So get them onto your newsletter so that you can.
Get them onto our newsletter, but also get them something that we're able to monetize. And that could be a product, could be a service, it could be a subscription, um,
Mhm.
it
Do you
could be
see
all the
yourself doing
above.
any kind of like long form content like with repeatable formats like hot ones or something like that where it's like a host and like some kind of challenge or something like that?
100%. Yeah. Whether it's brand sponsored, whether I go out and sell it to an Amazon or Netflix, it's the world that I came from. At Jukin, we had some of the hugely successful television shows. I think only one of the first digital media companies to have hugely successful TV shows. That's in my DNA, that's in my blood, and I absolutely want to do that. And just to touch back on the last thing you said on the monetization point, a big focus for us I like to say is that URL to IRL, and how do we bridge that gap and monetize people in a real life scenario?
Okay, Jonathan, those were all the questions I have for you. Where can people find you online?
Just check just check out loston.com. And if you want to reach out to directly, look me up on LinkedIn.
All right, well, this is a lot of fun. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.